Hello and welcome back, ladies and gents. We're going to do a quick video talking about Blast Open London, the finals as well, which is starting tomorrow. And kind of exciting times as well, of course, having a event in my home city is pretty sick, I have to say. So I'm really excited for this one to get underway. So we're going to talk through what's happened so far within Open, of course, in Copenhagen, leading in towards the finals itself, and what I expect is going to happen heading in towards the playoffs, the single elim bracket that it is. So let's take a look and see. We'll switch on over to here to look at everything that's sort of going on, the overview of where we're at. These are the teams that we've got booked in: MOUZ, M80, Vitality, FaZe, G2, and Furia as well. And if we're being frank, there's probably quite a lot of shocks here as well. If you actually go back to the online stage and look at some of the teams that struggled to make it or didn't look as good as we probably expected out of them, it is a bit of a wild time. Spirit, I think a lot of people expected them to be here as well, and it still feels like we haven't properly clicked with this side. And also, there's still the conversations of Spirit about when are we seeing Zontix out of this team and Tanir joining, right? When are we seeing the roster changes come through? Is this the right call as well? Is actually Zwei playing up to the level that we expect out of him? And arguably maybe not as well. Na'Vi, similar things. Makaze in towards this team is meant to be this injection of firepower, but something feels like it's not really clicking just yet with an RV side. So interesting times there as well. Gamer Legion, I think probably you could have made an argument about them pushing it, especially considering we've got teams like M80, of course, who've made it. Furia, who are a little bit of a shock, especially in the fashion that they made it. But yeah, Gamer Legion, unfortunately, not to be for them. Fnatic, I think that was quite a heartbreaking one, if I'm being honest. It would have been cool to see Cypher in front of the crowd, right? I think that's where a lot of people would have been very, very happy, but it didn't end up being the case. Of course, this is how things are panning out. You see that we already have Vitality and Fury. They've booked their spot into the semi-finals with first place finishes in the online stage, and we'll come to those two teams immediately, right? We'll start with the teams that are already there, and we'll start with Vitality. Their run: a win over M80 2-1, a win over Gamer Legion 2-1, and a win over FaZe 2-1. But if we're being honest, the narrative still around this Vitality team is that we're not convinced. I think it's probably the ultimate way of putting it. This is a side that for me have still not reclaimed that former glory of 7 trophies in a row and 37 wins, best of threes under their belt in succession. But this is a side that are showing that they are beatable. M80 looked excellent. Credit to them. That overpass seems like a very, very good map for them as well. FaZe, I think at times got really unfortunate there in that series. It was an absolute brutal one, right? And for Vitality, I think even they themselves are realizing that these were games in the past, especially your M80s and your Gamer Legion, they would walk over, right? They wouldn't really break that much of a sweat, and now they're being made to work for it. So this is where we're in quite an interesting spot, I think, with Vitality, where they're still not convincing, but you still can't count them out. You still actually got to come into every single tournament at the moment and say, yes, sure, Vitality, maybe not where we want from them, or maybe not back to the level as they were for the first 6 months, but they still are good enough to win every single tournament that they come into. And they still probably should be considered the favourites, if not one of, right, in this tournament. So it's an interesting time for Vitality. They've also got the buff that I'm assuming the majority of the crowd, especially myself, will be backing them, right? We want Messi to win on home soil. I mean, especially what that'll mean to him. He's already started to get a lot of public praise within the UK, you know, with kind of our news outlets like the BBC, for example, our kind of main news source, already doing stories on him and stuff. So it will be quite cool if he can kind of crown off what has already been a fantastic year with a win on home soil. It will be sick in that sense as well. We don't really get there might not even be another opportunity to have something like that as well. Following that, of course, we got Furia, who, credit to them, Fury have looked excellent. Both those wins over Spirit and MOUZ, a lot to like. And there's still moments where we're questioning maybe the consistency out from Fury, but as a whole, they are hitting hard. When you look at what this side is starting to do now as well, Molodoi is really clicking in to what his roles are. Yukindar, he has his ups and downs, but as a whole, I think has brought a lot towards this team. And we're starting to see Keserato and Fallen really freed up in what they've been doing. Fallen seems like, as we saw from that clip on Mirage, right, where he's really rolled back the ears a little bit, right? He's still showing that he's got a bit of that mechanical prowess. It's an exciting time, actually, to be a kind of a Brazilian Counter-Strike fan. This is a Furious side that play fun Counter-Strike. They're enjoyable to watch. There's a lot to like in terms of the personalities on this side. And they're now starting to get the results behind it as well. So this is a really spicy time for them too. And the fact that they've booked their spot automatically to the semi-final with that win over MOUZ is massive as well. So interesting times, right? I think is kind of ultimately the story for this side. And it's kind of a question of where the ceiling is, right? How far can this side actually go? I mean, the form that they're currently in, you should actually consider them a real contender for this, especially with Vitality looking a little weak. Some of the teams below them as well also being a bit shaky. They generally should be a contender. And they're on that slightly easier side of the bracket with the FaZe G2 game. I would say that's a little bit easier than probably what would be MOUZ coming through that game. And we'll get onto that now as well. MOUZ, of course, they've got M80 in towards this next game. Now, for me, on paper, this should be a very, very simple one. MOUZ should win this, but I'll give credit where it's due. This is an M80 side that have looked excellent. Some of the wins that they picked up on the road to booking their spot in towards the playoffs is actually kind of nuts, right? And this is a side that are really starting to look very, very solid. However, I think this should be end of the road. MOUZ have considerably more depth than them when it heads in towards basically everything that M80 want to bring. They just have the individuals that can take over. And I think as much as Sin has been a very good caller, you look at this MOUZ side and they've got considerably more depth for me as well. But credit where it's due, their run, fantastic. Lost the Vitality, like we mentioned earlier, but it was pretty close. And then it was wins over VP, Na'Vi, and Fnatic. Fnatic one was pretty heartbreaking. I really would have wanted to see Fnatic and Cypher kind of in front of the crowd, right? But it is what it is. I have a lot of kind of love for this M80 side who have really actually rekindled the form. I think Hex has been a fantastic pickup. I didn't love it originally because I was a big fan of Rek and I thought he did a lot in terms of how he liked to play anchor positions and sort of what he was doing for the NA scene. But credit where it's due, I think Hex has looked fantastic. You know, coming from NRG, I think he's slotted quite comfortably in there as well. And of course, he brings a lot in terms of, I think, the personality towards this side as well. Swisher looks like he's found his form again, which is really, really good to see. And it's the European imports of Sin and Slax who have been excellent. Sin's calling's fantastic. Slax individually is a monster on his day. So this team, super exciting, but MOUZ should win it, right? They should make their way through this game. They just have a lot more depth and a lot more experience on a stage, in an arena, in front of a crowd like this. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to seeing how that game pans out. And you can see as well for MOUZ what their run was like as well. Win over Imperial and G2, but that loss to Furia as well. And, you know, again, credit where it's due. That Furia side looking pretty damn spicy. So as a whole, I can sort of understand it for MOUZ. They just lost to a team out in really good form at the moment. But I think even if they got the chance at a rematch, I'd probably back MOUZ again in that sense. As much as it's close, right? Because Fury are exciting. They're fun to root for as well. Over in the other quarterfinal, we got FaZe taking on G2 as well. And this one's also interesting for its own variety of reasons when we're talking about roster changes. We're looking at a G2 side in particular where obviously they brought in Matty, Sampais, and Saw in the background. Matty's actually looked pretty decent. I actually didn't think he'd click so quickly in towards tier 1, but I think he's actually looked pretty comfortable, right? And I think he's given a lot of freedom and a lot of space to sort of express himself. Sampais, on the other hand, is looking very weak. I'm not being impressed with Sampais at all. And if he doesn't click, he could get overwhelmed in this game. Brokey seems like he's rekindling that 2022 Brokey form out of nowhere, who's kind of lighting things up. And I think with their current form, what they're in, I'd probably back FaZe in this one. I'm not a huge fan of the Jacob pickup. I think there is just better players as a whole, but it makes sense, right? You know, Carrigan's wife obviously works for BetClick, Apogee, and sort of recommended them. Obviously, they played against each other on LAN a little bit early in the year, and actually BetClick did look pretty damn solid there, Jacob in particular, but I'm still not sold on this pickup just yet. I think I need a little bit more consistency going forward before I'm fully convinced on it. However, for now, I probably back FaZe in this one, right? So I think FaZe should take this, which they, again, does spice things up. If those quarterfinals are to go the way I'm expecting, it's MOUZ then taking on Vitality. It's a fantastic semi-final on that Saturday as well. And then FaZe taking on Furia, also really exciting. You've got kind of this sort of rogue unknown potential of this Furia side where we don't know where the ceiling is, as I was talking about, and then a FaZe side who feel like they're rekindling a bit of the flame, but there still is massive pockets in terms of their form, their ability at the moment. They're still not playing to the level that we're used to from FaZe of the past. So it's an exciting time. I do think MOUZ and FaZe should be the winners of those quarterfinals, but we'll have to see. Of course, FaZe's run to get here, win over Ecstatic, a little closer than they would have liked. I actually didn't love what we saw at times in that series. Na'Vi was a little better, and then Vitality, you know, credit to them, they actually really kind of beat the brakes off Vitality at times in that seeding game. Just couldn't get her over the line as well. I think they'll be a little bit annoyed themselves not to have got that over the line. On the flip side as well, for G2, their journey here as well, a little bit up and down at times. I think the Liquid one, fair enough. There's a Liquid side that are very, very weak right now. Then they lost to Miles. Again, sort of fair enough. You back Miles every day of the week when you talk about that head-to-head in that series, and then wins over FlyQuest and Spirit. And it's that Spirit one in particular, which was really commendable. Not a lot of people expected that as well. You can see Donk looked very, very tilted in that game. He really got kind of in his own head about it. And I think, credit where it's due. I think G2 actually just outcalled Spirit. They played a very, very good game. Had the individuals that really, really shone through as well. So, yeah, a lot to like there. Now, I don't want to call it the easiest runs, right? But if you kind of take out the fact that, Spirit looked a little shaky, well, not even a little, quite a lot shaky, right? In that sense, they weren't very convincing at all. And then you got a FlyQuest side that are just very weak at the moment and now don't have a coach anymore. And a Liquid side that are looking horrendous for the most part. It's not the hardest run in the world. That Spirit one is very commendable. I'm not going to take away from that at all. But I think they also caught Spirit on a good day, let's call it that. But to round it off, of course, I can do my predictions overall. So Miles should be M80 in my eyes, and they'll take on Vitality. I'm going to back Vitality there to take that one and move on towards the grand finals. FaZe should beat G2. Then against Furia, it becomes difficult, but as much as it probably pains me to say, I actually think I might say FaZe to win this one. I think I love what Fury are doing right now, and they're a really fun team to root for. I'm just not convinced on the ceiling of this side just yet. So I'm going to say FaZe to win that and a Vitality FaZe final. I got to back UKCS, right? So I got to say, I think in that sense, I've got to say Vitality to win it overall. But it should be an exciting time nonetheless. We'll finish things off with a bit of fantasy as well. This is the team I was thinking of going for. Now, you might hear me out and be like, where's Mezzy? Why aren't I back in UKCS? Well, I backed him in the previous sort of stage, and he got me kind of no points, right? So I think maybe I haven't picked him a few times and he's got a lot of points, and then the 2 times recently when I've picked him, he's got like next to no points, and it's kind of ruined my my fancy a little bit. So maybe I'm cursing him. It's sort of my internal thought process here, but I've still technically got a UKCS player because I got Flames in there as well. And yes, Flames has been very up and down, very consistent in his own regard, but I think he has the roles and the positions to maybe be able to shine a little bit more, in my opinion, right? So we'll see. But as a whole, this is the team I'm going with. Fallen, I'm just going to back him on current form. I actually think he looks really confident. Fury playing fun Counter-Strike. I think they're cool to watch. And FaZe, I've gone for 2 FaZe players, of course, Karrigan and Rain. Karrigan is an interesting one because his rating has been horrible recently. And I was sort of tempted to put him under the like noob role, just because his rating has been dreadful. I think it was like minus 54, was it, or 34, something like that in the Vitality series where he really struggled. Right, wasn't convincing at all. But Karrigan on a big stage, you sort of want to back him a little bit. Rain, I just think is ever consistent. I didn't have enough money to kind of go for anybody else. So that's sort of where I'm leaning here. I hope it sort of makes a little bit of sense. But because I'm expecting a Vitality FaZe final, I'm sort of going all in on a Vitality FaZe final. And Fallen just for the shits and gigs, really, if I'm being completely honest. But we'll see how this one pans out. Nonetheless, that is what we're going for. I'm excited as well. I'll be out there in London. If any of you are coming to London as well for this, let me know. I'll be in the arena all 3 days. And I'm very, very excited for it. I've just got a fresh haircut ready for Blast London. But without further ado, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. We'll be back with some more event previews and all the rest heading in towards next week and the rest of the month. For now, though, thank you very much for joining us. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff for now. I'll see you in London. If not, I'll see you in the future. Take care.